Hey, how's it going, everyone? Rob from the West Des Moines Fire Department. We've been getting a lot of questions recently from fellow business owners like yourself, questions in relation to fire prevention and inspections, and how we come up with the codes that we enforce. So I figured that I would compile some of the most common questions and make this little video, hopefully to answer everything that you guys have. First, I thought I'd answer one of the most common questions that I get, which is basically just, what is the basic concept of fire education, code enforcement, and fire engineering? Fire education simply is just teaching people about fire safety and prevention. This includes teaching people how to prevent fires, respond to fires, how to use, fire safety equipment like extinguishers. Education also can include teaching people about the different types of fires and how to extinguish them. One of the other common questions that we get here in the city is, what is the basic concept of fire code enforcement? This is simply just to ensure that buildings and other structures are designed, constructed, and maintained in accordance with the applicable fire safety codes that we have chosen here in the city to enforce. Obviously, this is done to reduce the risk of fire and to protect life and property. Fire code enforcement typically involves inspections, enforcements of those regulations, and education of you, the building or business owner. Fire engineering is another word that you guys hear a lot of when we talk about code enforcement, and a common question is, what is the basic concept of fire engineering? It's basically just the application of science and engineering principles used to protect the people, the property, and the environments from, obviously the destructive effects of fire and smoke. It involves the analysis of fire hazards and the design of fire protection systems. This helps reduce the potential for fire to occur and minimize the damage in your building should fire actually occur. So how are these fire codes enforced? Well, the Fire Prevention Bureau is in charge of actually going around town and coming into your business or the building that you own and making sure that these fire codes are up to par. And that's done with either line guys like myself, firefighters that go out on an annual basis, which is usually once a year, to inspect your business, or it is done with guys from the Fire Prevention Bureau specifically, where their sole job is to do building inspections. We will use our current fire codes that have been determined by the fire marshal to ensure that your business and your building is operating within these codes. Now, for new construction buildings or renovations, larger buildings, or very high risk type of occupancies, we have a lot of data centers in the city, large warehouses, high schools, stuff like that. The Fire Prevention Bureau actually has officer level inspectors. So these are captain level inspectors or chief level inspectors. They will go around and do the fire inspection on a much more in-depth and thorough basis. Any issues found will then have a 30-day window to correct those deficiencies before any fines begin. So how do we apply these fire codes to either new buildings or existing occupancies? Well, we obviously require that all new occupancies meet the current building code standards within the city of West Des Moines. The Prevention Bureau will look at building plans before the ground is even broken to determine what will be needed for proper fire protection. They'll take into account, items like the square footage of the building, the occupancy type of the building, the materials or the fire load that's going to be in the building, and they'll make sure that what the builder is going to be using for fire protection is going to be adequate and up to code with what the fire marshal has set. Businesses that are being built or renovated, that are not complying with these requirements can be put on hold by the fire marshal. Now, existing occupancies can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes they'll also have to be brought up to code. Obviously, the city realizes that it costs a lot of money to bring an older building up to current fire codes. So anytime there's any large renovations done, that really is the best time to do this and the cheapest time for the building or business owner to do this. Again, they're going to look at the fire load, the total square footage, the occupancy type, the building construction type, the building location, and so on to determine what is going to be needed to bring this building up to code. So another common question that we get a lot of is who actually comes up with the fire resistance of these building materials. Now, there's a handful of organizations nationally that do this, that our Fire Prevention Bureau and the Fire Marshal will use. These include Underwriter Laboratories, Factory Mutual, International Code Council, just to name a few. But Underwriters Laboratories is probably the number one and the one that I'm most familiar with. Now, just like there's various agencies that actually do these tests, there's various tests that these agencies do. These can be anything like the ASTM E119 test. UL has the 723 fire test. NFPA has the 286 fire test. There's the ASTM E84, the ASTM E136. So there's a list of applicable tests that can be used to determine the fire ratings of materials. The one that I'm the most familiar with is, again, Underwriters Laboratories, the UL 723 fire test. This is used to basically just evaluate the fire resistance of building materials. It is designed to measure flame spread and smoke development of materials when exposed to a controlled flame. The test is conducted in a chamber, and the material is exposed to that flame for a specified amount of time. The results of that test are then used to determine the fire ratings of the material. And this is to ensure that, each material gets the same fair and honest test to make sure that the rating that they get is going to be even and applicable across all the materials that are tested. It's a very controlled environment. So then once these tests are done and the ratings have been established, they're then used to evaluate the fire resistance of building materials, components, and assemblies. They then give these buildings certain classification types. So then these fire ratings are used by our Prevention Bureau to ensure that the buildings meet the minimum fire safety requirements. It could be, protective materials that have to be applied after the building is built onto certain structural members. It could be a certain amount of smoke detectors or sprinkler heads within the building. It could be minimum space requirements for the materials that are inside the building. It could be the alarm system type. Again, because of your fire load, what your business has in it at the time, and so on. So obviously these fire codes are set in stone, and it's what has to be used within the city. It just depends on your business and your building type as to what is going to be applicable for your business. So I hope that this helped answer some of your questions. If you have any other questions about your business or the building that you own in relation to the fire codes here in the city of West Des Moines, don't hesitate to reach out to the Prevention Bureau, and we'll help you out as much as we can. Thank you.